everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. Yes, we are a little late. Hi, Tress. Sorry to keep you waiting. Yeah, I was kind of being slow tonight, so my bad. couldn't get off my ass soon enough, I guess. But anyway, here we are. So, just us ladies this week, and that's okay. You can't bug somebody to come and hang out with us every week, I guess, but so joining us from Pennsylvania as usual. Good evening, Beth.
Howdy, howdy.
I know. Oh, look at that. We got Matt in chat too. Hey, Matt. And from the wild and not hurricane stricken Mississippi. Good evening, Morgan.
Good evening. We've got still plenty of them around the sea that could possibly hit us, so waiting on that.
Yes, I think we're already getting the rain from it too.
Well, at least you don't have to educate people as to what the landmass, between Louisiana and Arkansas is.
Not yet, but I'm sure that's coming.
I just laughed my ass off when we had the article that was like, blah, 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 Mississippi. I'm like, well, we know where the hell they are.
But anybody with the weather, they're like, there's this landmass between Mobile and New Orleans. We don't know what the hell it is, but everybody get the fuck out. So...
Oh my gosh, did you guys see I don't forget what news outlet it was, but it was the meteorologist guy standing out in the wind and the rain, like pretending that he was barely able to stand up, and there's all these people just strolling by behind him.
I died. I thought it was funny.
I heard about it, but I didn't see the video.
Oh,
my favorite so far from the recent hurricane, and not favorite because of what happened, but it makes a very good point, is a military Humvee was barreling through some water, and I don't know if their words were exchanged between a bunch of locals, I'm assuming, and just a normal standard raised pickup. The Humvee sailed out in the water, and the pickup had to tow him out.
Ooh.
But it just goes to show you shouldn't be out in that shit.
No. But
I know the military's trained to do so, but it's like everyday people should not be out in that shit.
I just laughed at the news guy, though, because I'm thinking to myself, because the other people in the background, they're walking around in shorts and t-shirts and sandals. I mean, yeah, they're wading through a bit of water, but I mean, it wasn't past their ankle. And he's like got the full-on rain gear, and I'm positive they had to have had like one of those industrial fans off camera blowing him, because his rain gear was flapping like crazy, and the other people, like, their t-shirts were sort of, rippling a little bit. Just like, really?
Yeah, but somebody in the Trump administration, like, I just thought it was funny, but like somebody from the Trump administration, I think they work in HUD, was like,
oh, she froze.
Like telling people that all of the Florence coverage was fake, and I was like,
oh,
17 people are dead, you absolute ghoul. Like, it wasn't. But did you see the graphic that the Weather Channel did where they showed like how high the water was going to get? Like, it scared the fuck out of me. It was.
Yes. In fact, what was I watching? I think it might have been the Philip DeFranco show, where he was just like, can we just talk about the terrifying graphics from the Weather Network?
Yeah, it was like, this is what it looks like at 9 feet, and this is what it looks like, at 5 feet and stuff. And it was just like, seeing the visual was just horrifying.
And as you can see, it's over my head now. I'm like, oh.
Believe it or not, a Fox station out of Charlotte, and then ABC 11 out of somewhere I think out of Raleigh, and through YouTube. And I don't remember which station. It might have been the Fox station, and they actually had very good coverage. So I'm not knocking that it's a Fox station, But they had this one post, and they were showing the levels of different hurricanes that had come through, and the big one in 52 for them was Agnes. I think it was Agnes. And it was way down at the bottom, and then they had a bunch of at like 10.5 feet.
You just went robotic. Sorry.
I'll be back.
The robot's taking over, man. So while we're waiting for her to refresh herself there. So I'm excited. Tomorrow I'm going to go visit our new kitten.
Yay.
There will be more kitten pictures tomorrow. Because, you can never have enough kittens in your life. But there's an echo going on now, but I'm sure she'll sort it in a minute.
NXIVM.
It's NXIVM, that's it. No, the lady who I'm getting the kitten from, very, very nice lady. They had 3 adult cats, and she was saying she runs a daycare in her house. So I think what I understood was at some point, some child let the mama cat out, and she found herself a Tom, and now we have kittens. So, shit happens, whatever. And it's one of those things now. See, I've heard in the States that there are a lot of places where you can go and get discounted spay or neuter. Like a lot of shelters will offer that, and some places will even, like if you're low income, they might even offer it for free or next to nothing. We don't have that up here. Like there are no charities that help with vet bills in Canada, sadly. So I think that was part of it, that they just hadn't gotten around to getting the kitty fixed. But anyway, earlier or late last week, I found out that her other female cat also just had kittens. I'm like, So, yeah, I saw a picture of one, so I'm gonna be like, oh, if one of those is like super adorable, we might be in trouble. Well, when we went the first time, the first litter, there were 7 kittens, but when we went, there were only 3 that were still available. And Beth's like, oh, so you're getting 3, huh? Like, no. And as cute and cuddly as they were, and Arno seemed to be he's never been around like kittens quite that young before, and so he was kind of like, oh, but he kept it to 1. So but I gotta tell you, if there's one that's super duper cute, I'm gonna be like,
He'll be coming home with at least 3. Trust me.
No, well, if the other 2, there were still 2 that hadn't been adopted yet, and so I don't know.
That's how I ended up with a fucking dog. Not that I have anything against dogs, but yeah. Oh, it was the only one at the pet store, so I had to buy it. $500 later.
What?
Yeah. Oh, because he was an AKC registered Chihuahua, and
he would have been adorable.
He was cute and all, but he was a nasty motherfucker. He wouldn't if he went to bed before I did, which was 99.9% of the time, he wouldn't let me in bed. But our first dog had chocolate brown in him, and it's a very rare, well, not rare, but unusual color in Chihuahuas. And this one was a chocolate brown. And yeah, my ex was like, oh, he was the last one left, and he looked so lonely. And yeah, chupacabra. He was too. He was a good dog, but he was
Speaking of critters in beds, my current cats, we have a heated mattress pad on the bed. So obviously this time of year we don't use it, but Twice now I've come in and she's been sprawled out on my side of the bed and has the heat turned on.
Our cat.
Well,
this
all it is, it's just a button that you would push. So the first time I'm like, oh, she like bumped into it, right? Because it's mounted on the dresser next to the bed. And yeah, then tonight I come in and she's all like, sprawled out on the bed. And I'm like, the light's on again, you little shit. This is summer, girl. We don't need to be using that power up.
Yeah, Moose Breast seems to really like laying in the middle of my... Okay, I have an efficiency apartment, so it's technically only one room. So where the kitchenette tile ends and the rug begins, he'll lay right on that edge. But his new thing is laying on his back with all fours in the air, sound asleep.
It must be an orange boy thing, because Bob always did that too.
Well, it's like, I'm like, dude, are you airing out your non-existent balls or something? Because, I mean, it's the funniest thing. It's just like, you're sitting here and you look over and there's your cat.
Nah.
And he's literally on his back. I mean, he's like, he'll lift his head. I mean, which is unusual for a cat, because they say that laying on their back like that is I guess, kind of painful for them, I guess. But it's like he's doing it on the hard floor. So
Bob did it all the time and did it on like hardwood floor. So
yeah, he won't. Very rare will he sleep in the chair or on the love seat. Occasionally he will, but he doesn't, like, he very rare will he sleep with me on the bed, which is fine. I'd prefer that he didn't because of my allergies, but I have the rocking chair, and he's gotten so big that he really no longer fits under it. His ass sticks out, but he thinks he's hiding really good. It's like, damn, kid, if you get any bigger, because he's to the point where I almost cannot pick him up.
yeah, he's big. Oh, wow.
He's now 5 pounds.
Yeesh. I think Bob hit 30 pounds at one point, so. Yeesh. Oh, well. But enough pussy talk for one night. Poor Morgan, she's left out in corgi land, but we love her anyway. Oh, so a lot's happened since we talked about NXIVM last time. Which, what was that? A good year or so ago? I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was about a year ago or so.
Yeah, and I mean,
almost exactly a year. Believe it or not, we talked about him in November.
Okay, well, it's pretty damn close then.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot going on, and
what's happened?
It started like almost immediately after we did the first show about it, oddly enough. But there's some folks sitting in jail waiting for trial right now, or assuming, if they haven't. I don't remember anybody in jail.
No trials have transpired yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, who is it? Claire Bronfman, which to me, the wildest part of this, or one of the wildest parts is like who these people are that are involved. And
Yes.
she is an equestrian. She was 12th in the United States, 80th in the world, and she's the daughter of the board. He used to be the CEO of a board of Seagram's, as in Seagram's Gin. And I was just like, girl, you're an heiress. What are you doing? Like, y'all wouldn't even hear from me if I had that much money.
Well, this is fun. I found, so CBC has actually really taken an interest in the case. And they've actually started doing a series of podcast episodes on it. Now, I haven't listened to them yet, but I found an article from CBC Radio that's sort of like a companion piece to the podcast, and it actually lays out very specifically who all the various players are. So I think that's kind of useful. And so right here, and for those of you listening, I will get the link into the description later so you can take a look at this article, because I am using visuals here. So if you don't want to bother looking it up, just pop on over to YouTube and watch the video here and you'll be able to see it. But so here we have the as Morgan was saying, there's two Bronfman sisters that are involved in this shit, Sarah and Claire. So, and they appear to have some sort of ranking system with wearing like a scarf kind of thing, and some of them have stripes on, and the different colors mean different things. So it just says here, Sarah and Claire Bronfman are daughters of the late billionaire Edgar Bronfman Sr., who was a chairman of the liquor company Seagram and president of the World Jewish Congress. Over the years, the sisters have allegedly used millions of their family's fortune to finance NXIVM ventures.
Just give the money to me.
I know. I'll tell you, you're enlightened. No problem. But this says Claire Bronfman was charged with racketeering in the United States in connection with NXIVM. So, because I think now, Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been charges laid in Canada and the United States, yes?
As far as I know right now, there are only charges in the United States.
Okay.
But you have to remember, NXIVM is in 3 countries. Canada, US, which is where it's based in New York State, and also Mexico.
Yes.
So this is why it gets so complicated. As far as I know, from what I could tell from what I read to catch up, even though I've been following it, figure that one out. There haven't been any charges laid in Mexico or Canada as of yet. Okay. And part of the reason I think that is the case is I have a lot of questions as to how the government is handling this case. I'm not saying they're doing it wrong, but there's some hesitancy on my part as far as with Rainier, and you and I talked about it last night a little bit. I don't think their case against Rainier is as strong as it is against Allison Mack, who is from Smallville, the TV show.
That's the face I have up on the screen right now. Because Triss was asking, they were saying, oh, she was an actress. What's her name? That's Allison Mack, Triss.
Oh, and I looked at her filmography recently just to see if she's been doing anything recently. And she actually was a recurring, I'm guessing she was a voice actress on a particular kids show that's loosely based on The Wizard of Oz in 2017. And I was like, why did you have her on a kids show? Like, I mean, I guess this would have been before people really knew what was going on with this, but I haven't seen any work since. And then even before that kids show, like, she didn't have any work she was doing since like Smallville basically ended. Like, she had a few recurring episodes here and there, but
that's how she got messed up into NXIVM. And just to refresh, because I know Matt mentioned what is NXIVM. Basically, it started out as a self-help MLM type group for corporate CEOs and people that wanted to better themselves.
It was a pyramid scheme, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of, but I wouldn't go. I mean, it probably is, but
it was more like, it wasn't so much that they were pyramiding like for just money, but it was more like pyramiding for members and ranks and
the
things.
Initial iteration of the group, Rainier was taken to court for pyramid scheme. I can't remember whether the case was adjudicated as far as if, he was found guilty. I think he was. I'm trying to go by memory. But then he met Nancy Salzman, who is the founder / CEO.
We'll get to them too. They've got nice pictures here.
And she was into psychology and neuro-linguistic programming. And it kind of morphed into this, instead of self-help per se, like, and this is where the comparisons to Scientology come in, and these comparisons, if you dig a little, are more so. The one picture Deb had up, the Brafman sisters were wearing orange and green sashes with white stripes.
Yeah,
basically those are the OT levels in Scientology. But yeah, it went from a self-help empowerment group to this really bizarre, no simple way to put it, sex cult.
Yeah, and I was looking into Rainier, however you say it, and he does have a lot of mythology that he's done about himself, which does remind me a lot of his L. Ron Hubbard type figure, but not as successful, because he claims that he claims to have graduated high school by 16, and then he claims that he has, these 3 degrees and all these minors and stuff, and then he claims that he was speaking in full sentences at the age of 1, and he had, and then when he was like 13, he had 3 years of college math knowledge under his belt and stuff like that. But I mean, whether that's true or not, but he also, after he graduated from college in 1982, he didn't go into any of the fields that he claims to have experience in. Instead, he went to work as a salesperson with Amway, which is, well-known pyramid scheme. He did that from 82 to 84. And then he became a programmer for the state parole board, which, yikes. Now looking back at that. And then he also had a consumer's byline, which was another MLM that he created, and it promised commissions and discounts to old customers who would then recruit new customers. And by 1993, he claims he'd sold $1 billion worth of goods and services. But then, and this is what you're talking about, Beth, in 1994, the state of New York, they took him to court, and they claimed he was the head of a rather large pyramid scheme, and he settled the civil suit out of court for $40,000, but reportedly he's only ever paid $9,000 of the settlement. And then he moved on to the National Health Network, which is another MLM that does vitamins. And then in 1997, that's when he met Nancy Salzman, who was a nurse and therapist, and then became his business partner and his basically right-hand wing
and
of NXIVM.
But from that same article that laid out what Morgan stated so nicely, was that basically we start with a multi-level marketing businessman who has turned himself into a self-improvement guru, and then somewhere down the line, ESP. And then somewhere down the line, Rainier started to paddle himself as a spiritual being to followers, which are mostly women. There are some men, but then it gets worse. And from a couple articles I read, the whole branding issue that we talked about the last show was actually Allison Mack. And this is why I think the case against Rainier might not be as strong. And I think that's why Mexico and Canada haven't laid out any charges, because Allison Mack is in up to her eyeballs. So is Nancy Salzman.
She said, according to People, that it was her idea to. And when we talk about branding, we mean physical branding, because apparently they had the idea initially to tattoo them. Yes. And then Allison Mack said, this is according to the People magazine article I was reading, which they do a lot of good, like, true crime reporting. And so it's not just, one of those celebrity rags, but so don't judge me. I love People. But so I was reading that she said, well, anybody can just get a tattoo. She said, basically, I have 3 tattoos and they don't mean anything. So, you know, I want something that's more meaningful. And to her, like branding something on the skin, I guess was more meaningful, which I don't know how, but I mean, tattooing is, you
I
know,
guess because it hurts a hell of a lot more.
yeah, and it's more unsafe. I feel like I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on who's doing the tattooing or branding, which I'm assuming not licensed people.
Well, they just got a bunch of them together, and I think they did it to each other.
Yeah, I think that's what they did. And so, yeah, it was just this thing where it was like you're branded, which is like you're owned. Because, you know, when I think about branding, that's what I think about. I think about cattle out on ranches in
There
Texas.
is.
Remember, in their little circle, hit a little bit more on, they have a slave master relationship.
Well, and
When
there
you bring
is in yeah, there is actually an obscure wing of sort of BDSM based on a absolutely awful bunch of sci-fi novels about a place called Gore, Gor, and the women that are slaves in that sci-fi universe are all branded by their owners.
Yeah.
And
they're borrowing sci-fi, like similar to Scientology. This is basically like discount Scientology because L. Ron Hubbard borrowed a lot from science fiction and his own writings of science fiction.
Well, and the thing too, Allison Mack is facing some of the worst charges of all of them. She has been charged with sex trafficking conspiracy, and forced labor conspiracy. And so she's out on $5 million bail and under house arrest currently, awaiting trial. So she in some deep doo-doo.
Yeah, and do you think that they're hoping that basically she's going to flip and tell on this guy, you think? Or you basically give him any information that could lead to his prosecution? Because it looks like he's been in this game for a while, and I think that's why they're charging him. Because I think that it's one of those situations where, like, he's the leader, but it's like he knows how to avoid getting himself into too much trouble.
And I think
that's the point I brought up last night. She said, you know, I said, I think the government's going to have a hard time convicting Rainier. Now Salzman and Mack, on the other hand, they seem to be neck and eye deep in all this shit, but Rainier really is not, as far as the branding and DOS and all the other stuff. And Deb was like, well, he probably orchestrated that way. And I said, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, Salzman seems to be the brain.
I see it, it could be a couple of different ways. So he orchestrated it in a sort of Charles Manson kind of way.
Exactly.
And,
that's coming out.
And influenced them to do these things because that's what he wanted. Or these two women are so warped in the head that and wanted to please him for whatever reason, or they found it as a way to perhaps control him to some degree, but they created this sisterhood of sex slaves for him to please him, whether it was as the dominant leader or as a puppet that they wanted to keep happy, whatever. But that they conspired to create this as, and if they're charging Mac with conspiracy, that might be more how they're leaning. I don't know. It's hard to say because I haven't got to what Rainier's charged with yet. Let's go and take a look at Buddy here. I'll share that. So this is Rainier, who kind of looks pretty dorky, if you ask me, but I don't know. He doesn't inspire charisma. Like, he doesn't seem charismatic to me. And like, I've seen him in a couple of interviews that he did before he got arrested, and I'm thinking, what do people see in you? You just sound like a dreary, boring guy, but what do I know? So
one of the things he said, because I read probably the New York Times, was that he basically all he does all day is walks around for 12, 14 hours pondering how he can save humanity. That's all he does. He has, according to him, no money. He lives below the poverty line, but yet the Brahmin.
Oh yeah, sure, because they're bankrolling everything. I'm sure.
Yeah, they're basically bankrolling him. He doesn't drive, so he, as I said, he considers himself a spiritual guru. And in the one interview he was talking when he met Salzman, he basically said, "Oh, you mean like how I'm changing you now?" Basically, he
Okay.
manipulating her, and she's like, "Well, yeah, I do feel better." It's like, what fucking planet are you on? I mean, and then that's why the comparisons to Manson are now starting to come out, because this guy's charisma, if you want to call it that, is so eerie. Like, I mean, I remember bits and pieces of the Manson stuff. I kind of have a slight little connection through my ex. Her mom was Squeaky From's cellmate.
Oh my.
Yes, so I've always had an interest in Charles Manson because I mean, I grew up with it. I mean, Helter Skelter,
Right.
the whole bit. But I mean, and that's why they could never let Manson out. Like, even though Manson didn't actually commit the tape murders and stuff, he got people to do it for him. And I think that's the hold Rainier has over these women. But I think these women, like you pointed out, have a hold over him. So
It could be both or either.
Well, I read a thing that was saying, and I think this came from that same People article, where like he was able to target women who had experienced some kind of emotional damage or trauma, and that's who he targeted and groomed sort of to take these roles. And actually, I have a list of everybody who's been charged so far.
Okay. Yeah, I did get that too. And for those who maybe didn't know, Renier, you didn't call him Keith Renier, you called him Vanguard.
And you called Salzman prefect.
Yeah, and they got blackmail on you so you couldn't leave. Like, they would take nude pictures, they would demand that you give them blackmailing material. I mean, again, very similar to Scientology in that way with the auditing sessions. You know, there's been speculation that Jantra and Tom Cruise can't leave because of something that Scientology has on them.
And they did that. They would keep a whole dossier on people. So, and they
go after enemies too. Like one of the members, Kathy Russell, she was apparently the bookkeeper, and she's a high-ranking member. She's been charged with racketeering conspiracy, and she's alleged to have been part of a plan to steal email usernames and passwords from NXIVM enemies, including, I think, this guy's ex-girlfriend from the Rochester, New York area. And she's also accused of giving an identification document to a NXIVM member who was denied entry to the United States through Canada. The member then used the card, which contained the name and information of someone who recently died, to enter the country. So, yeah, it's a bunch of crazy stuff. And yeah, Salzman basically is also accused of collecting collateral from the DOS slaves, and including nudes and family secrets through extortion. So that's how these people weren't. A lot of these people weren't able to leave.
Women who have spoken out said they sort of played it up. Well, you need to prove your dedication to the group, and if you bare your soul or body to us, then that will prove that you're dedicated and you're worthy of the honor that we are bestowing on you. And at that point, once they once they're in that deep, they're invested, and they don't want to feel like they're a failure. And so in the moment when they're being offered what seems like this wonderful opportunity and something that not everybody is offered, et cetera, they're, oh, well, if you put it that way, I guess, okay. And they did it, and many of them kind of said later, well, I kind of knew I shouldn't do that, but in the moment, it just seemed like I had to. But just backtrack a bit about Renier. He is actually charged with sex trafficking, conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit forced labor. So they are charging him on par with Allison Mack. So they aren't caring whose idea it was, I don't think.
To clarify is that there is NXIVM, which is the MLM part of the business. And then there's what's called DOS, which stands for Dominus Obsequious, and my pronunciation of this Latin is probably terrible, Sororium. Basically, it means lord over the obedient female companions.
Yeah, it's a sorority, they call it, don't they? Call it a sorority?
They call it a sorority, and this is where the sex cult part of it comes in, but they are interconnected. And like Deb noted, Rainier seems to be targeting vulnerable women who have, like in the case of the one Brofman sister, wanted a better relationship with her father. She felt alienated from her father, and she wanted to save the world like her father did with all his billions. And they actually got the father to attend one session. He was like, "Fuck this shit." You know, but he was between him and Salzman, they were able to manipulate joining, and her and her sister basically are bankrolling the whole thing. And have someone like Allison Mack, who's after Smallville, her career went south. And if you pay attention to Scientology, if you really look at John Travolta and Cruz, they will admit that without Scientology, their careers would be nothing. At least they think so.
Yeah, but NXIVM didn't really kickstart her career, though, is the thing. Like, it didn't do that.
They said they could, but they have not delivered on that. And that's where the difference lays, is that her career has gone nowhere since she's been involved in NXIVM. But what she's been doing is been recruiting other actors and actresses, and this brings in another girl. Well, that's how India Oxenberg got involved. Catherine Oxenberg from Dynasty.
Yes.
She's messed up into it, and supposedly she's going through deprogramming. I don't know a whole lot about how she's doing with it, but I know there have been some issues. You have Kristen Kurek, who is a Canadian actor. She did actually finally leave. You have Sarah Edmondson. She's out of New York, and there was actually an episode on A&E about her. So these are not people like you and I. These are people that have, we'll say, potential in their careers. And just to, you also have, Brandon Porter is the doctor that is responsible for the branding, and he's in trouble with the health board. And then you have Emiliano Salinas, who is the son of the former Mexican president, Carlos Salinas.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to support Renier, but he, and allegedly at the time of this article, he was still affiliated, but I think he's even severed his affiliation and basically told Renier, get lost. And then you also have Anna Cristina Fox, who is the daughter of the current Mexican president. So these are not wimpy people. These are
not Vicente Fox, because he's not the
okay.
Anymore. He was president in 2010 when I was there, but I think there's like 2 presidents since then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm a little
Catherine Oxenberg has actually written a book about her daughter India being in the cult, and it's called Captive: A Mother's Crusade to Save Her Daughter from a Terrifying Cult. Let's see, I'm trying to see. Yeah, so the new book, it says it details her efforts to save India and convince her of the dangers of the group. And then in the process to get her daughter out of NXIVM, Catherine learned that India was part of a secret group of women within the group who were recruited to be slaves, put on a starvation diet, and branded with Rainier's initials of a cauterizing pen.
Yeah.
And then she said she was trying to approach the issue, but she said their relationship, of course, became strained after, she fought to expose this group, and she was, contacting law enforcement, but at the same time, not wanting to alienate her daughter. So yeah, it was just a whole mess.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard, because I know in the first episode that we talked about NXIVM, and this was like the shit about Ranieri broke literally the next day after the show. We aired on Monday, and Tuesday they announced they were going to arrest Ranieri.
Oh, this is interesting. So they also when she contacted her and she was like, why did you get this dude's initials? Apparently India, I'm assuming, yeah, it was India. She responded and she said she thought it was something else, and she said it was a Latin symbol. And she said whatever it was didn't matter, and they were told whatever it was would be strengthening.
Yeah,
so that's
interesting. What the symbol actually was.
Well, I have a graphic here. So this shows it rather well, and actually you can see how it would look at the top here. That's obviously a fairly fresh one. So they told them it was some kind of Latin or Greek thing. And so then if you look where my point, I think you can see my pointer there. The first angle, it looks like KR for Keith Raniere. But if you turn it the other way, you end up with an AM for Allison Mack. So the design actually has both initials in it.
And that's why, I mean, she's so eye deep in this. It's really kind of scary, because it's like, I mean, I know people that have been involved in cults, and it's like, how, like, even like I think about how the hell did I ever get into Pentecostalism? But then I look at my mental health history, and it fits. With my bipolar, it fits. And if I could see how somebody like could get into it and get in, and then couldn't get out. And Diane Benscotter is another one. Kevin Hansen is another one. They're both former and current deprogrammers, and they do a lot of anti-cult talks. I mean, what's his name? I want to say Robert Ross, but I know I'm getting the name wrong. It's Ross, but he actually had a 14-year lawsuit.
Damn.
With NXIVM because of some of this bullshit. And like Scientology, they are sue happy. Although they won't, I don't think they have the, what's the word I'm looking for? Gumption.
The attorneys.
Well, I think they have the attorneys to the degree, but I think the attorneys they have know that a lot of their cases may be lost causes and don't want.
Well, they don't have the power, I feel like, of Scientology or the influence that they had, because I mean, if you think about how much money, I mean, that alone with Scientology, how much money and how much property they owned, which I think they're on the decline now, but yeah, it's scary.
Have lots of money, but they don't have, collecting from thousands of members since the 1950s kind of money.
Yeah, and the most powerful people in Hollywood, like Allison Mack. I mean, if that's your most powerful member, it's like, all right. Tom Cruise and John Travolta, they had cash. I mean, Kirstie Alley even, and all those people.
Yeah. Like they were all A-listers at one point. Juliette Lewis, was it Juliette Lewis? Yeah, she was an A-lister before. They go for the big fish. And NXIVM kind of, they don't have the visibility or the charisma. Like, just having watched interviews with Renier, there's no way he could entice somebody, excuse me, like somebody like a Tom Cruise kind of person. There's no way he could entice somebody like he sounds like a wet noodle to me, but whatever.
Well, one of the comparisons I saw is that he's L. Ron Hubbard and Joseph Smith rolled into one.
I could see that.
And
but not as successful.
No.
I feel like he's like a discount version of that.
As well.
He's a dollar store knockoff.
Yeah, he's a dollar store knockoff, I feel like, of L. Ron Hubbard. And
he's L. Ron Hubbard, Joseph Smith, and Ayn Rand. I have to throw.
And Rand, why do you, just because of a labor exploitation?
No, yeah, that and his idea of money. Indian. Rand. So I mean, that's a really odd combination, considering if you take seriously L. Ron Hubbard's motivation for starting Scientology, the whole money thing.
Yeah, that, and he was just a twisted, awful human. But yeah, it is. It's terrifying. And then you see how this. I mean, I'm glad that this got the attention that it did. I don't know if it was necessarily our show, but I'm glad it did get the attention, and people brought these charges before it did get out of hand and before it could have spiraled out of control. Now I don't know if it could have spiraled out of control to the degree of Scientology, because Scientology still formed before the age of the internet and things like that. Yeah. But I mean, people still fall for dumb stuff all the time. I mean, how many people in the day of the internet believe that the earth is flat? So it's not. But I do still feel like there's not as many like cults or like things of that nature to the degree that there were, in the 70s, I feel like. But I also feel at the same time that it could be ripe for resurgence at the same time.
Well, I think with what's so dangerous to me concerning NXIVM is his comparison to Charles Manson. And that somebody could have that type of hold over another person. And I think what makes, well, Trish brought it up in chat, is it that easy to start a cult? Yes, it is. All you need is somebody to believe the bullshit you're spouting.
And you only even need a couple of people to start with.
Yeah, and what to take a recent situation, all you need is a couple of fucking assholes calling you a cult leader. And we're just talking about that in chat. And that's the thing, because you take somebody that's unstable. Oh, maybe I am a cult leader. Maybe there's something in that. And your mind.
Well, look at one of the biggest cult leaders there ever was, Muhammad. When he started having hallucinations in his little cave, he freaked out and was like, holy shit, I'm like mentally ill, I'm losing my mind. And his damn wife took him to some Christian mystic who was like, oh no, you're a prophet of God. And he's like, oh damn, that sounds way better than going nuts. Damn it, I'm a prophet of God. And now look what happened.
Or more calculating people, like if you think about Jim Jones, who, I feel like somebody like that is calculated from the start to take advantage of people, because he was told by his mother so often, oh, he's going to be a great man. I know he's going to be a great man. And to a degree that was sort of people feeding into their own, bullshit of him eventually being like, oh, I am a great man. But also to a degree, I feel like everything was so calculated to an extent. I mean, there was, heavy drug use along with that, but I still think that the things that he did were very calculated.
Oh, for sure. No, this is funny. I was just doing some Googling here, and I came across somebody on Twitter who goes by In the Matrix is positing that Stormy Daniels was branded by NXIVM.
Goodbye.
I like this. It's like she has a clock tattoo time of 333. I'm like,
That doesn't mean anything.
yeah.
That's woo-woo shit.
That could be the time she was born, for all we know.
They're trying to say that she has the NXIVM brand because now the brand is usually just like on the hip, just above like the panty line.
Yeah.
Sort of headed south, but not quite. And she, in a picture this guy put up, Stormy's got a tattoo there. And they're like,
yeah, why'd she get a tattoo and everybody else get brands? That doesn't make any sense.
The tattoo is like some kind of flora. It's a big flower. And they're like, oh no, it's Photoshop to hide her NXIVM brand. I'm like,
who would do that? Who?
I know.
Hide brand.
And then she's wearing a bracelet in another picture with someone's name on it. It's like, oh, that means that she's owned by that person.
No, it doesn't. It could be a friend. It could be a friendship bracelet for all you know, or it could be a brand. Like there's brands that sound like people's names.
And then they said, oh, and she has a mark on her middle finger.
It could be a birthmark. That is like, that's the thing that I feel like that's such a stretch, because if she truly was a member, then she would just have the brand and she would be trying to recruit other people into the group. Like she wouldn't be like a secret member of the cult that's trying to get other cult members, especially because she's such a high profile figure, especially now. And also I think Stormy Daniels, even before all this stuff with her and Trump, like she was still way more high profile than I think somebody like an Allison Mack. Like I just don't see her falling for that.
And the picture where they're like, she has an inscription on her middle finger, it looks like a scrape or a burn, just like in between her two fingers. It's
literally can do that on a curling iron. Happens to me all the time.
Or what here there. Yeah, like Beth from Working in the Kitchen. But that's what they're see. Yeah, look, name on bracelet and mark. Does that not look like you just
looks like she burned herself with a cigarette?
Yeah. Or I was even thinking like burning embers from a fireplace or something.
Well, and this is a perfect example of the fucking bullshit they did with President Obama with his wedding ring.
Oh yeah, that the secret Muslim ring, Beth.
Yes.
Oh fuck.
And this is how rumors start, and you get somebody that's mentally unstable in the sense that they have an overactive imagination. They'll run with this shit. And
yeah, because it is fun. It's like going on a treasure hunt for clues. You know, it's like people that were talking about the cute people. Like I'm sure they're having a great time, but it's nonsense.
Yeah, you have people like Jim Baker. You have people like Kat Kerr, the so-called prophetess that stopped the hurricane with her scepter. And people wonder how did she stop the hurricane with her scepter?
Which one?
Well, she tried it both. Well, you could be Pat Robertson and pray for it not to hit your land, but fuck everybody else. But these people have followers. Yes. There are people that are, and this is how easy it is to start a cult. I mean, I have a background. I mean, I didn't go through with going into the ministry, but like today I was writing a blog post and I jokingly put in preacher mode because I immediately, and we, you know, like even like we've talked, like when we talked with Vicky Garrison way back in the beginning, I mean, she immediately snapped back into that fundamentalist mode. That's how, and it's very persuasive. I mean, I could probably preach a sermon on some vagary in the New Testament and people would fucking buy it, but I'm an atheist. It's how you present things. And this is what, you know, controversy as to the value of neuro-linguistic programming. This is what makes it dangerous, because you get somebody like Salzman who uses it they can convince people of anything. I mean, there's a video clip demonstrating it. This was during when the show The Mentalist was pretty big,
Right.
and there's a clip on YouTube where a guy convinces another guy that for his birthday, his 33rd birthday or something, he was an adult, that he wanted a red BMX bike.
Okay.
That's not what he wanted initially, but he convinced them using neurolinguistic programming.
Okay.
So yeah, cult is that easily. If you have the right dynamics, you can, I mean, any one of us could start a cult.
Yeah, it's if you have that personality and that sort of,
I've
drive to do that.
many times, like, damn you having morals. I could make a cult.
And that's what it comes down to. I mean, yeah, I could probably do it, but I can't see people listening to me babble for hours on end. So
have you guys seen the movie Kumare?
No.
Oh, you should totally look it up. It's on, last I checked, it was still on Netflix. It's
Okay.
Kumare. And basically this guy, I don't even know what his normal day job was, but he's from India, like of ancestry. I think he was born in the US though. But he had recently gone to India and observed a lot of the guru culture over there.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah.
So he's like, shit, I could do that. So he decides to do this social experiment. So he grows out his hair, grows a beard, and like starts wearing robes and shit. And he starts basically this cult of he calls himself Kumari. But the whole message of his cult was, I'm fake, I'm not who I say I am, you don't need anybody to tell you what to do. Like, he says this in his quote teachings over and over and over again, and they're all just like, oh, that's so profound, and then they sit around and hang on his every word. And he has these people hanging out at his house for like 6 or 8 months or something, and then he goes and cuts his hair, shaves his beard, puts on jeans, comes out and said exactly the same thing he said all along. I'm not who I said I was. I'm not a guru, and you don't need anybody to tell you how to live. And like half of the people were just incredibly upset, and they were like, you deceived us and all this shit. And he's like, no, I told you what I was doing the entire time you were here. You just didn't want to hear.
Trish goes, man, that's some Life of Brian shit right there, and they're right. I mean, you got a bit of Life of Brian bullshit going on. If you remember the scene in Forrest Gump where he was running and all these people just started following him, and like they were word, and then you have like with Kumari. I mean, this is how I don't like using this word so much to describe people, but this is how gullible people are. And that's why I think, not to get political, but I think that's why we have the political culture we have right now, because people are fucking gullible. And there's that. I mean, we've heard the slights thrown around. Oh, Trump is a cult leader, or Trumpism is a cult. And in some regards, there is a cultic aspect to that political affiliation. But, you get somebody like Salzman and Rainier together, and then you have a go-getter like Allison Mack, who, who's trying to impress. I don't know who she's trying to impress. You have a problem. But then you have someone who pretty much point blank said, the whole reason I'm starting Scientology is to make money, but yet people followed him. Or Joseph Smith. I mean, he was convicted of what?
He was convicted of fraud for he would If you remember, he translated the golden plates by looking in a hat and with some rocks in it that apparently told him they were seer stones. So he used seer stones in a hat to tell people where there was buried treasure and charge them for the privilege. And of course, there was never any buried treasure.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly. I mean, you have a known con man starting his religion, which is now one of the bigger religions in the world. And if you want to take it a step further and really bash Christianity, you have a 12 to 14-year-old chick saying, "Oh, God fucked me. That's why I'm pregnant."
Oh, where did that? Oh, Mary. Yeah.
You're like, where did that happen?
Yeah.
I mean, to cover up her indiscretion of screwing around with.
There was the girl on Dr. Phil who was pregnant with Jesus. But anyway, just quickly, there's a movie poster for Kumare, The True Story of a False Prophet. So there you go. Anybody want? I highly recommend it if folks haven't seen it. It's quite good. But yeah, there's that chick on Dr. Phil, man. She's like, I'm pregnant with the Jesus.
Yeah.
Didn't she have like pregnancy symptoms, but it was false? Like all of it was like false, and she had taken 1 million like pregnancy tests, and they all came back negative, and they even took her to get an ultrasound, and they were like, "You are not pregnant," and she was like, "Yes, I am. You don't know my life." I don't know if it was all that dramatic, but that's my reenactment of that episode.
Yeah.
There are going to be people that are going to believe that shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, people? I can be gullible. I fall for some stupid shit, but when it comes to something like someone saying, "Well, I'm Christ reincarnated," and I'm like, "Yeah, no." I mean,
yeah, Tris, that's exactly what I was thinking. They said, "Jesus, you are not the Father."
I mean, yeah, there's actually a meme that says that too, and it's with Maury Povich.
I have it. I have two versions. One
probably.
It's got Joseph and Mary in the manger leaning over baby Jesus, and it's got Maury smirking behind them, and it's like, Joseph, you are not the Father. And the second one I have is exactly the same, except across the bottom it says Maury Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you take somebody like Rainier, Salzman, and Mac, who are intentionally preying on vulnerable people, and you got to remember this: it's not just women, but the DOS part of it is just women.
Yes. Well, and who are the kind of people that would spend a lot of time and energy in a self-help group? Is people who feel like they need to change something in their life or examine something in their life. And oftentimes that's because they're dealing with some sort of issue, be it, depression, or they're dealing with, their life not going the way they wanted, or they've got a change in relationships, or, any kind of challenge in life is often what leads people to examine self-help theories. And so those are often people who could be vulnerable.
And also women, because I mean, if you look at the MLM and how they had, these separate, these connected organizations, but it was kind of like a multiple layers within this sort of MLM structure. You had the NXIVM, you had the executive support program, the ESP, and you had this DOS, which was, the innermost layer. And MLMs, these multi-level marketing companies, they, for the most part, they target women because they, especially women who are, for instance, are staying at home, or they need supplementary income or something like that, just because of the way women are treated in society. And so I think that he was able to figure out how to target women based on those practices that he had done before with trying to recruit people in his pyramid schemes.
Yeah. Yeah. Ay. Oh, look, we've got some trolls back in the chat. What do you know?
Are they NXIVM trolls?
Nah, I don't think so. They're asking about whether gay people go to heaven.
What does that have to do with anything? That's not what our show is about.
I know.
If you're gonna comment, if you're gonna troll, be topical. Like we're talking about a cult NXIVM. Jesus.
It's like the people who pop in the chat and are like, "How can you justify your logical existence?" And I'm like, "We're talking about nothing to do with that." Fuck off. Can you stay topical? Oh yeah.
Oh, that's me. That's me.
That's you. Yeah. Buddy, yeah, he can try and stay topical. That'd be cool. So what does heaven have to do with NXIVM? Because I'm pretty sure they don't offer that.
Yeah, that's not in their benefits package.
Well,
you get a brand and you get to do some free labor and you get your life ruined and you have to turn over incriminating information about yourself or embarrassing information.
You might have to do some
the part that blows my mind, Morgan, what you just said about this incriminating evidence. This is something you turn over.
That's right. They goad you into doing it.
Yeah, it's like...
And it looks like they were stealing information, too, because it said, like, NXIVM had some enemies, and so what they were doing is they were, like, employing these people to sort of hack into people's emails and either try and take things out of context, and it wasn't just incriminating stuff, it was like, we have to have these nudes of you, so we'll release them if you try to leave, or it was embarrassing family secrets, so maybe not you yourself would be at risk, but say a family member, and you would take that, I think, more seriously, because it'd be like, maybe I can handle this, but I don't want to embarrass like my cousin or something.
Well, and if memory serves,
I always laugh because some of the discussions I get, they'll make these offhand comments like, "Oh, you'll regret blah blah blah," and I'm like, I have a radio show. I really don't give a fuck what people know. If I did, I wouldn't have a radio show. You know, it's like, but like Frank Parletto, who has done quite a bit of writing on NXIVM, I mean, and that's one of the things he stressed in the beginning was this whole lording over people. Oh, we got this on you. And, you know, I just don't understand. I mean, I guess it's just like, one, I don't, you know, I pretty much wear everything on my sleeve. I mean, you know, I don't really hide anything about myself, or at least I don't think I do. But these people that are kind of, quote, secretive about shit in their past, is like, if it's secret, why the hell are you revealing it?
Well, I don't think they come out with that. I mean, that's the thing about cults is, you know, you say, like, it's crazy if some guy is like, hi, I'm a reincarnation of Jesus, but nobody comes out and says that and starts a cult, or at least that's very rare. What they do is they just sort of ease you into it, and then by, you know, when you're brainwashed and when you're like 6 months to a year into it, you know, maybe they will start saying they're Jesus, and that's not so crazy. I mean, it's just like, you know, the metaphor of which I hate it because everyone uses it wrong, but, you know, when you put the frog in the pot and you don't start off with putting it in boiling water, you increase the heat because it's used to it.
I like the Mormon terminology, which is milk before meat. Yeah. So that's how they train their missionaries, is you only give prospective converts snippets of the nice and warm and fuzzy stuff.
It's in the Bible too.
Yeah, you don't tell them about, you know, Joseph Smith had 30 odd wives and married other people's wives and made up, you know, got thrown in jail. Well, they don't believe necessarily he got thrown in jail, but you know what I mean? You don't talk about the fact that black people were only allowed to be in the priesthood until the 70s, and you used to have to swear to slit your own throat if you revealed the temple ceremony, and how fucking creepy whacked out the temple ceremony, like none of that stuff. And the same thing goes with Scientology. They start you off with communication course or
therapy. It's like, talk about your problems and then you feel better. And that's not such a crazy idea because it works. I mean, to an extent, like if you talk about your problems, you feel better.
Every Scientologist I have talked to has said that the communication course that they started out with was quite beneficial. They got good use out of it. And then they start in with, the purification rundown, which is they push it's healthy and it's vitamins and this and that. And by the time you get to Xenu, you've been in for 3 to 5 years, spent anywhere from 50,000 to $1 million, and you're not about to just go, Xenu? Fuck that, I'm going home. Like, no, it just doesn't happen. And that's how they do it.
I know there's been questions lately concerning Serena Williams, the tennis player, and her involvement in Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
Yes, she will on occasion cite her beliefs in Jehovah's Witnesses, and people are wondering, does she really know what the fuck's going on? Does she know, the diddling of the children and all the other sundries with Jehovah's Witnesses? The same thing. I mean, the same thing was said about Michael Jackson when he was alive and claimed Jehovah's Witness. Even after Prince's death, it was brought up. So you get these people, and you wonder, do they even know what they are associating themselves with?
Yeah.
That's very disappointing because I love Serena Williams.
Yeah, it's made me take it as like, shit. Well, it's like, well, case in point for me was Temple Grayson. She's autistic, and she's really, really, really smart. Should know that the MMR, but she's too old. The MMR didn't exist back then. But
you want to say that again? You froze up for a second there.
She basically has stated that the MMR causes autism. Well, she couldn't.
In other words, she's jumped on the vaccines cause autism.
Yeah, and so it's like going back to what Morgan was saying with the impetus of the internet and social media in passing this bullshit around. It's a hell of a lot easier now than it was back in the 80s. But yet, back in the 80s, there were some really nutty cults.
Oh, yeah. Well, even in the 90s and that, look at Heaven's Gate. And they had a web presence.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, their website's insane. It's the most 90s thing ever. I'm going to see if I can find it.
Oh, it is. And now, Beth, you probably knew this, but we were talking about Nichelle Nichols before the show. She actually lost her brother to Heaven's Gate.
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Nichelle Nichols, a gift from Deb.
It's, there we go. It depends on how you hold it. It glares right over her face.
Yeah. But yeah.
But that's just...
got a picture with her.
Yeah. I would have given it to you, but I couldn't get a picture with you, so it worked out. Yeah, but it was some crazy. And then there was another one in the early 2000s, a solar temple. Yeah, and they were like burning themselves up or burning each other all over from Montreal to fucking Switzerland.
Well, I just posted one today out of Brazil. I'm just going to read the headline. It says, "Meet the worshippers who believe they're aliens in human form."
Oh, man.
And then you have the Raelians.
Yeah. Oh, the Raelians are fucking nuts. Well, look at our hydro prophet guy, which I haven't seen around in a long time. But he was like, "Oh, I'm a reptilian from planet Dorator." Like,
there it is.
Oh, she found.
I don't know if you can see it.
You have to screen share.
I think I thought I did. Oh, hang on. There it goes.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, that's Heaven's Gate.
Is there anything there anymore?
Yeah. It's still active.
Like, is there anything you can click on in there?
Oh, I just looked up
Oh, you
the
just
image. I just looked up a logo. Yeah, because I remember I seeing it and being like, "Good heavens, it's very retro."
1996 called and wants their website back.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about Heaven's Gate. I mean, there were two people that had some really odd, to be nice, beliefs.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how easy it can be. I mean,
Heavensgate.com still exists.
yeah, it's still an active cult.
Oh, Morgan. Wait.
Oh, there it is. The 90s are alive.
Look it up top. Red alert!
Good Lord. This looks like, oh my goodness. This is like, what was that old, was it GeoCities or something?
Yes,
like that blog? Yeah.
GeoCities.
It looks like intro to HTML.
HTML. Yep.
Whenever I see a website that's designed like this, I don't care what it's about. I'm like, well, those people are nuts. Like, if you have a website that looks like this in 2018, like, I just am like, oh, that's an alert for crazy. Like when you have the weird fonts and then the like different colors and the.
I'm thanking the Flying Spaghetti Monster. There's no fucking music on this site.
Oh god! I bet the music would be wonderful.
Or one of those cursors with like the stars that follow you around and shit.
Oh.
Look at this. They actually says the following materials are available through Tela service, TELAH, whatever the fuck that is. Videotape 1.
Last chance to evacuate Earth before it's recycled. It's not going to be thrown away. It's going to be recycled. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, planet Earth about to be recycled. Your only chance to survive. Leave with us, October 5th, 1996. Well, that's been.
Well, I think we missed the boat. Our book entitled "How and When Heaven's Gate May Be Entered." Okay.
Oh, we can get videotapes for no charge. How much you want to bet they'll send us?
They'll send you what?
VHS.
Yeah.
They'll send you videotapes for free.
Sure they will. I mean, come on. It says video. Who calls anything videotape except grandma?
I mean, it's probably like legit, like VHS tapes.
Seriously, I am quite sure it is. Yeah, to access our book
Opposition against suicide. Do you see that?
What, huh?
Opposition against suicide.
Okay. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's got pink print. Ay, caramba.
Yeah, so, oh, goodness. So basically, they're saying that they were wrong to kill themselves.
No, it says at the last paragraph, the true meaning of suicide, in quotes, is to turn against the next level when it is being offered. So we're committing suicide, not them.
But didn't all those people commit suicide?
Yeah, but they accepted the next level. So right. Suicide is living and living is suicide.
Oh, I love the redefining of terms in religion.
Yeah, because you notice they have suicide in quotes, right? Mm-hmm. And the next level was ditching your body and moving on to Halebach or whatever. Yeah, see, we fully desire, expect, and look towards boarding a spacecraft from the next level very soon in our physical bodies. There's no doubt in our mind that being, quote, picked up is inevitable in the very near future, but what happens between now and then is the big question. Okay.
I hope they pick me up. I'm about to the way everything's going, I'm like, some aliens, please come get me.
It's like, pee me up, Scotty, please.
Please, I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
I have a bookmark that says that, beam me up, Scotty. There's no intelligent life down here.
Well, I think for me, when the whole NXIVM thing broke on our last episode, literally, it was like, how in this day and age can someone like Keith Raniere and Salzman and Alison Mack, how? I mean, explain to me how. And I'm like, what? And this goes back to, what are we fucking teaching in school? Sure ain't critical thinking.
Yeah.
No, can't have critical thinking, because then you won't support your leader or in any of that. So
yeah, and that's because it's like, I listen to some of the kids, when I'm down at work and stuff, and the few times I go out, and it's like, some of the crazy shit I hear is like, where the fuck you getting that?
yeah,
I mean,
some
we're
kids are on top of it, but others, I'm just like, what are they doing?
okay. Although this is not a quote big issue per se, we're just now starting to get the remnants of Hurricane Florence, and our creeks here will be filling up with water again. In fact, I posted a picture from the last hurricane that hit your landmass. I'm sorry, I got it right on that one. And it's like, our creeks were maybe 3 feet from the bottom of the ridge. Okay, it knocked it off at some of its piers. I saw pictures of people fucking tubing down, well, what was a creek and now it's a full-blown river. And it's like, the kids were playing, oh yeah, we're gonna go tubing. It's like, no, it's not a really good idea. Oh, we'll be fine. No life jackets, no helmets, and there's, boulders and rocks in the
I think
creek.
that's more just, when you're a teenager, your brain's not all the way developed. So I think that's more just that,
Well, you
rather than lack of critical thinking.
take that notion, add religious bullshit, and I don't care what religion it is, whether it's a quote cult or whether it's Christianity, Judaism, and you have a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Reach the controversy.
Yeah. Man, it's pretty crazy stuff, but I also wonder how much of that isn't just a little bit of redneck brain, because some of the shit we used to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with Morgan that, yeah, the kids are not bright sometimes.
I mean, your brain's not all the way there until you're like 25, so it's...
Or
yeah.
as Judge Judy likes to says, you're not cooked yet. She says that all the time when there's some like barely 20 kid on there. She's like, his brain's not cooked yet. Why did you get into a contract with him? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just kind of blows my mind to think how,
yeah. I mean, shit. I used to do things like we had one of those wooden toboggans, and my dad would hitch it up to the back of the pickup truck and drive it up and down the road, just behind the truck on the road.
At our summer home, our quote backyard was a fairly gentle hill going downhill, and then it was the pond was there, and it was a 2 or 3 acre pond, but there was this nice little steep little hill that would be really, really cool to go down on a toboggan with. So my dad, my brother, me, and I believe my mom, we all decided to do this. My brother was on the back end. He's a couple years older than I am. And we went down this hill in the middle of winter. I mean, stupidest fucking idea any of us ever had. Whatever possessed us, I don't know. Well, we went straight down. We didn't do the nice little slope. So we went straight through the ice.
Oh, damn. I bet that was a bit cold.
Well, luckily it didn't like shatter completely where we got submerged. But when we hit my mom's knee, my mom's bad knee that she's had reconstructed at the time, you know, well, actually, I think she just had surgery not long before that, about a year before. But she had had that knee totally reconstructed when I was a baby, and she jammed that knee into the snowbank.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, you have 4 adults doing stupid shit. It's like, well, I don't know what possessed us, though. We thought it'd be cool. Yeah.
Mm.
It's like, but that's something, you know, minor in the sense that it, you know, there, well, for my mom, there were some consequences, but, you know, nothing like handing a nude picture over to some chick.
Yeah.
Or
Like, and if memory serves, one of the women even said they told her, we need this from you to ensure that you don't betray the group or that you follow what you're told or what. Like they flat out told her that it was for blackmail purposes. And she coughed it up anyway.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, and that's what's so
well, it's scary and it's kind of disheartening that someone would get to a mindset where that seemed okay to do.
Yeah. I mean, are they that desperate for success? Whatever it may be, or
Because I mean, I tell ya, I got lots of tattoos. So if I've never seen anyone branded, but I've read about people that have voluntarily gotten branded, and I'm thinking all I'd have to do is watch someone involuntarily branded once, and I'd be fucking out of there.
well, one article I read concerning the branding is they literally held the women down while they were being branded.
But they got them willingly to submit initially.
Yeah. And they
Which is like a sorority thing or a fraternity thing, or it used to be to get branded with like the Greek letters or whatever. So some people are like, well, once they were like, you got to get branded, I'd be out. But actually, that used to be a fairly common thing in like Greek life. So it's not the most illogical jump to be like, oh, you're getting branded with some Latin or Greek letters.
Some of these folks are old enough to have experienced, like, know people that did that, or that was a thing when they were at school. They wouldn't think much of it then, perhaps.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it is dumb to do, but I mean, it's not the most like crazy thing where people are like, "Oh, I would have been like completely out." But yeah, I mean, once I'd seen somebody get branded, I think I would just be like, "I don't care what kind of group this is," you know. But I mean, that some people are just desperate for that belonging.
Well, there was a piece written in a Times article, and they were talking to Sarah Edmondson, and she's one of the key whistleblowers, and basically the Times wrote, these puzzle pieces formed the ultimate tabloid story concerning all the surrounding NXIVM. In an age of the vast tabloidification of media, and the tale about female empowerment and lack thereof in a time of feminist uprising laced with questions of consent and coercion, wielded by a man of power without accountability. Some women were severely thin, and that's another point we should hit on, possibly as a means of mind control. Key defectors began speaking out, and this is Sarah Edmondson's. Her and her husband, were both upset. She was a former leader of NXIVM in Vancouver, and she wrote to the Times via email that her and her husband left after a decade in the organization and disgusted about the branding. This is when the branding issue hit. Nothing what we thought it was. So obviously there's some people that still have, they were in it for the empower, the growth, personal growth within, being a CEO, because that's what a lot of their programs were initially, or are geared towards, the first layer. But one of the things mentioned in that little bit was the women being that were part of DOS being exceptionally thin, to the point where, in my position, I mean, my perspective, I find it as being gross. Not anorexic thin, but that borderline between being really too thin and being anorexic thin. And the women saw, I mean, and Catherine Oxenberg brought this up about India, was that she was so thin. I mean, trying to get her to eat was difficult. In fact, she's still not eating properly. And these women would purge.
Ugh.
It, from what I read, didn't seem to be real super prevalent. They just didn't eat. And supposedly Rainier likes his women very thin.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole thing with the Duggar family.
Yeah.
Hair. If you ever watched, it's still kind of there, but when the 19 Kids and Counting was still on TV and still very popular before the Josh Duggar issue, if you noticed, all the girls' hair was identical.
Yep.
Why? Because that's how Bill Goth, and they were Gothard.
Yeah.
It was a means for Gothard to control the women within.
What is it about cult leaders that, they might start off with these grandiose ideas of how to change the world and all of that, and in the end it almost always boils down to how much sex they can have.
Yep.
Virtually all of them, it ends up that way.
Well, I think you touched on it earlier, is that there was manipulation going both ways. There was Rainier manipulating Mac and Salzman, but I think Salzman and Mac were manipulating Rainier by promising him all the sex. And Rainier has admitted to being polyamorous.
Okay.
And he has been for quite some time. That's one of the
reasons. But you can be poly without having sex slaves in a cult.
Well, I think that's where where Salzman and Mac may come in, is that they were using his polyamory as enticement. Oh, we'll get this girl for you, type thing. Manipulate him by offering him women.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't seem to matter what religious icon it is. It almost always ends up just the sex at the end.
Well, you look with the recent scandal in India with one or two of the gurus there.
Oh, there's been a bunch of the gurus over there.
Yeah, I only have two that I kind of sort of been following, but now, I think it was last week, a Buddhist monk, the teenage boy.
Yep.
Now they're looking into, the whole setup for, the whole monk issue, because it's like you said, what is it with these so-called?
Just look at David Koresh. He was boning every woman in his cult. Joseph Smith and Brigham Young were boning every. Jim Jones was boning everybody.
Charles
Manson. There was the the Move movement.
Yes, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that one, and then there was another one called The Family, I think. Just oodles and oodles of them, and it just like they start they claim, which was the one with that even would send women out to seduce strangers to bring them into the cult.
Oh, um,
Hookers for Jesus?
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna bug me now. Which one was that? I have to look
well,
that up.
I think what it is that somewhere along the line, these quote spiritual gurus get into the convince themselves that sex is spiritual enlightenment via orgasm, and they convince their followers that this is true. You're going to be closer to quote God if you have sex with me, and I can make you orgasm.
Okay, so Hookers for Jesus is something completely different now.
Oh,
They're sex workers who really love Jesus.
oh, okay. What I think that because I listened to a podcast and they talk about cults occasionally. Last podcast on the left, and they were talking about this practice. Was it Children of God or something?
Might have been.
That was the one that I think Joaquin Phoenix and all of them were in. His parents.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I want to say it was that one.
The other thing that they did was they encouraged pedophilia.
Yeah, I think that's Children of God. Yeah, I think something of God.
Well, let me see what I can. Family International. That's what it was. That's what they call themselves now.
Okay.
Yes, Family International. Members of the Children of God.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I ended up Googling Children of God sex cult.
Well, you're on a list.
After I just Googled hookers for Jesus.
God, I hope nobody ever raised your computer.
Be like, she was running a cult.
Oh, actually, I was even just talking about that with Marissa today, because Beth and I were arguing. Well, it wasn't Beth wasn't arguing with that, but I was arguing with this transphobic asshole on my page last night, and he's like giving me all of these links to like ultra conservative rags that were super anti-trans, and then trying to tell me he wasn't a conservative, and then I laughed in his face. But at one point he kept saying that trans activists have formed a cult. So I yeah. So at one point, because Riss had commented at one point and then deleted it because she's trying to recover and she doesn't need to read that stuff. And I just said, sorry about that, but by the way, now you've started a second cult, just so you know. So she said, what was it? I said something about she needed to build us all a commune. And she said, no, I'm the cult leader. You have to build the commune. Get to it, minions. But she wants hobbit houses.
Well, what I find funny about that accusation is that between we have mutual trans friends, and it's like, if that's being part of a cult, learning about what they go through, then I'm a happy minion then.
Yeah.
It's like, and I occasionally get it with my blog, not very often, but it's like, I don't really care if people read my blog or not. I'm not out there to impress anybody. I just do it for me, something I like to do. And I think in some regards for some of our podcast friends, that's the same thing. They just do because they like to, and obviously, in Kelly and Rissa's regard, they have a specific reason for doing what they do. If that's
You froze. You're good.
if that's being a cult, then we have a problem, because then it goes back to politics again. Something that Trump came out with in the last week or so, where we should outlaw protesting.
Ugh, no.
It's like, okay, if we can't be, quote, activists, or as some people call us, cult members, what's the point?
Yeah.
And that's that. Basically, I see with Rainier, that's why I see so much of Charlie Manson in him, because that's basically what he wanted his little cult to do. He didn't want the responsibility of anything. It's all on you guys. And he got those women to do, specifically to do some horrendous thing. And I could see Rainier going down that road. Just like Koresh, just like Jim Jones.
Yep. Well, I was right too. There is another one called The Family, as well as the movement and family.
Isn't that what Manson called his followers?
Yeah,
Right?
this is a later incarnation, like nothing to do with Manson. I think he called it The Family, or I don't know.
Well, there's also a political religio group out of Washington that Jeff Charlotte wrote about, called The Family. If we're talking the same kind, they also use the term with the Philadelphia fires.
Yes.
So yeah, it kind of gets you kind of have to put a disclaimer.
And what is it? I've noticed this, and maybe you have too, that virtually every organization that makes a point of stressing family in the title is like completely disgusting.
Well, it's because, I mean, the people that join these groups, I mean, I think they are looking for sort of a family. They're looking for that sense of belonging and that being a part of something. And that's what the cult presents themselves as giving.
Even non-cults, well, I guess it's not really a cult, like Focus on the Family or Family Research Council and all those fuckers. They're all horrible too.
Well, they're trying to reiterate that bond, that we're all part of the family of Christ, or the family of
No, I'm not. Sorry.
And it's like, when people think of family, they automatically think of wholesome.
I don't.
And neither do I.
I'm like, nope, that ship is long sailed.
Yeah, it's like, but there are people, when you talk about family, you have all these mushy goody two-shoe type, feels and stuff. So to them, it's a wholesome image. And I think someone brought this up in one of the conversations in one of the groups I'm in, and it's like, no, when I think of family, it was the spanking.
Right.
And it's like, oh, do you mean when Dad broke the tennis racket and guitars over my head and knee? That type of spanking? So yeah, but people don't think that. They think, oh, a little swat on the ass. But just like with family, it's not always happy-go-lucky.
Nope.
Yeah, and even for people who have negative connotations, like I do to a degree, it's, the whole thing, or it's like, oh, well, I'm looking for a place of belonging. I'm looking for, the sort of a place to belong, because at the end of the day, I mean, people do sort of need that to a degree. And, there are bad people out there who do take advantage of that.
Yeah, and that's what people like Rainier and David Koresh and Jim Jones, that's what they took advantage of, is that need or want of a place to belong. And
Yes.
I think that's why, like, I jokingly bitch about taking 10 years to get out of religion, but my family is Deb, it's you, Morgan, it's Dave, Ashley. That's my family. It's not who I fucking lived with for the first 16 years of my life. They mean nothing to me. My family is who I make it. So I've been able to jump past that negative connotation, so to speak, and put my own value on it, where I think some people that join cults aren't able to. And I think this is where, like Sarah Edmondson, who left NXIVM 10 years ago, was able to jump past it. Like, this is not what I expected, and got the hell out of there.
Yep.
And I think there's a crossover, not just with cults, but with any of the religious organizations, the Mormons, SCW,
Yeah.
not SCW, it's the JWs.
Oh, the SJWs. Some people say we are a religion. Some people do say that.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I've been accused of being in a cult.
I was told that I belong to the religion of transactivism.
That's a cool religion. I'd like to join.
Yeah, it's. I'm thinking that's all right. Yeah. I mean, I already apparently joined the religion of atheism a long time ago.
Or as our friend said in the chat, Scientology equals atheism.
Yeah.
I don't know how, considering they believe in Xenu, so.
Yeah.
And
Thetans are not supernatural. So yeah, no. That didn't work. Whatever.
But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to who the prey is. Who are they preying on? Who are they taking advantage of? And I think a lot is, and I think this is why it's important that we expose these groups, is that we might not be able to get to the quote organization, but we might get to somebody who, is thinking on. We'll say, oh, well, that's it. Oh, I wonder what this is about, and that's why, like, when Matt asked in the beginning, what the hell is NXIVM?
Yep.
However you want to pronounce it.
Well, if you remember, the title of the original show was "What the fuck is NXIVM?"
Well,
yeah, because it sounds like the purple pill that you take for indigestion.
Yes, I know.
And that comparison is in a lot of the articles. It's like, no, it's not the purple pill. But think about how you and I, how we initially got into this, was that we're like, NXIVM, what's this? And we dug a little more, and we're like, holy fuck. And
you know what? I think the purple pill should sue these fuckers for copyright infringement.
I think they've actually been around longer.
Ah, damn, because that they literally are causing brand confusion, which is, if memory serves, is a legitimate
confusion is a actionable thing, but it has to be to where like it's a factor test, and it has to be where like consumers would genuinely be confused. And I don't think that consumers would genuinely be confused between like a cult and a pill you take for indigestion. So I don't think they'd have a very strong case, but I think a cease and desist letter might have scared them.
They go to a NXIVM meeting, and they're like, but he's not a giant purple pill. What's wrong?
They're worshiping the purple pill. They're all dancing around it. Giant purple pill.
I actually think NXIVM the cult has actually been around longer, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to remember when the pill came out, because I used to take it.
It's spelled differently too, because it's more like a weird like Roman numerals and like letters for like the cult one.
And the purple pill is actually spelled with like vowels and stuff.
Yeah, this one's like, it sounds like a shitty club you'd go to in Manhattan.
Yeah,
is how it's spelled.
spelled NXIVM, and the cult is NXIVM, and
It's trendy.
Yeah, it's the medical name for it, I guess, is esomeprazole.
Yeah, NXIVM's better.
Yeah, it's interesting because I can tell by the suffix of prazole that it's an acid pump inhibitor, because I take one that's called, where is it? Oh, not that one. When you're diabetic, you have a lot of fucking pills to take. Rabiprazole. So it's not the purple pill, it's actually pink, but you know. So, oh no, sorry, it's yellow. It's yellow. But I'm looking to see if it says when it was. It's talking about, indications, contraindications, dosages, blah blah blah. I'm like, no, I just want to know when it was invented. Damn it.
oh God, what one of the persons in the crazy group, this just caught my eye. Atheist cult missionaries.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, between the launch of esomeprazole in 2001,
Yeah, approval date. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm seeing that too.
2001,
Yeah, February 20th, 2001 was when it was approved.
and you said Cult NXIVM was from the 90s, didn't you, Beth?
Well, yeah, it started obviously as ESP, but I think they were using the NXIVM title in 1998, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I'm sure the drug company had no idea there was a cult running around, because, I mean, we didn't find out about this even until last year.
And that's the thing. It was just like this one or two articles popped up, and Deb and I like to, explore cults.
Yeah, but even for like cults, like people who are actively interested in it, like none of us even knew about it until last year, which is weird because, we follow this stuff more closely than I guess your average person just bopping around.
Yeah. And it's like, I was like, well, it's just like, what's that one we did? That goofy one.
Oh, the new whatever shit.
It's like,
I still get Facebook shit from that. I actually saw a post that came from Dwayne's account. The what the fuck does he call himself? Like the great writer?
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I follow a lot of the fringe religions and the cults, and it's like there's just like maybe 2 or 3 a week that is stories I post about different cults, and that's only in the U.S. That's because I I had to stop doing that because I was just being overwhelmed.
By the way, you are correct. I looked it up, and it NXIVM with Renee and Salzman was in 1998.
Okay, that's what I thought I had read. I was going by memory, but I mean, here we have some. Well, you'll guess who it is, but saying atheist cult missionaries. It's like that's how easily people can label other people, and that's why last year when we did our
and look at how when Mitt Romney was running for president, Pat Robertson's flunkies were saying all before that Mormonism's a cult, and then Romney runs for office, and oh no, it's not a cult. And I think, did you say you think that they've gone back to saying it's a cult?
Oh, they have. It's Billy Graham.
Billy Graham, sorry. Yeah. Those old, wrinkly old white bastards look all the same to me.
But yeah, and that's the thing. When Mitt Romney was running, and there were other people in the race, for the Republican nomination, Mormonism was considered a cult. And since the 80s, when I was in college, it was always considered a cult. I'll say from the Christian perspective.
Same for me. It was Mormons in French camp were considered a cult, and so were Jehovah's Witnesses were considered a cult as well by them.
Yeah. Well, they are. It's just that they missed the fact that Christianity is a cult too.
Hold on, I lost my sound again.
Oh, you've gone all roboty. Well, while you're doing that, I think that about does it for tonight. Yeah, lots to cover though, so I hope folks learned a few things at least, and I don't know if Matt's still out there or not, but I hope that definitely go back and watch our first episode called "What the Fuck is NXIVM" from about a year ago. If you want sort of a slightly more detailed version of what they are and where they came from and all that fun stuff, but lots out there to absorb, that's for sure. So we'll be curious to see how these trials proceed and what, if any, kind of jail time Renee and Mac and Salzman get.
Well, Renee's trial is set for January. I don't know.
Okay, so it's going to be a while.
But I was telling Deb before the show that just to get ready for this show, as far as the amount of information out there, I had read 65 articles.
Oh, damn.
I finally got to the point where I just could not read anymore. I was like, "Oh, I've had enough." I didn't even get halfway into what I wanted to cover, but yeah, it's just like
I'll put the link out for the CBC radio, the article that I was referencing with all of the key players, and I believe there are links to the podcast that they're doing about NXIVM. So if you want to absorb some information audio style, you can check that out. And CBC does the video.
I'll have some article links as well.
Okay.
That were informative.
Awesome. So that about does it, ladies. So Beth, why don't you tell folks where they can find you?
Easy Way is on Twitter, Dune 998. That connects to Facebook as well as to my. Oh no, it doesn't connect to Facebook anymore. To my blog on Blogger Havoc and Chaos, and generally I post bad people in church, i.e., diddling priests, and not just the Catholic issue, but I also get into the Protestant, Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, and while I don't cover worldwide, I do hit the cases that are big, and basically I just aggregate the news stories, and I'm up to over 5,000 articles just on diddling priests and diddling religious people, as well as fraud, drugs, and other crimes, murder. I also cover the trans crimes. Right now we're up to 18 or 19, I can't remember. Trans women that have been killed. There may have been more. I haven't checked yet this week because it's only Monday. And then you can find me on Facebook under Beth A. Hambridge. If you do send me a friend request, please put that it's in regards to the show, or I will not approve you.
All right. And Morgan, where can we find you?
All right. You can find me on the Biskeptical podcast with Tris Mamone on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher. You can also find me on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer, and on Twitter and Instagram at Mostring. That's MOSTRING.
Awesome.
And Morgan, before we jump to you, Deb, tell us about this book review, The Faith of Donald Trump, you did.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I was on Kevin and Benedict's show, and so you can check that out at Kevin and Benedict. You can check their Twitter or Facebook page or on iTunes. And I had to read a few chapters of The Faith of Donald J. Trump.
I was going to say, how awful were your chapters?
Oh, that's the
They
one you
were
did.
rough, but they made no sense. Like, it was just random anecdotes that were just strung together, and none of them followed. Because Kevin was saying, yeah, this is what, like, one of the most disjointed sections, because it was like, and then they started laying hands, and then I was at this fancy restaurant, and Oprah was there, and it just gets, it's wild. Like, it is extremely wild, and it's a crazy, crazy thing. And and I got to read the part about where Trump used 2 Corinthians and instead of 2 Corinthians, and how that was done and whatever. And the author is just the most gullible man in the world. But yeah, it was fun, but in a way, in a very sick and twisted way. But yeah, you can check the episode out. It's out now.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the same show that Deb did. Cool.
It is. I got to read the part where they tried to say that Trump's womanizing was really just another way of him expressing his desire to find God.
Oh, good fucking
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that before, though, with French Camp. They were like, the reason y'all are sluts is y'all are looking for Jesus. And it's like, no, it's because some people like dick.
And there was at least 3, like we only read 3 chapters, and there was at least 3, maybe 4 times where the authors would introduce a situation or a character, and then, but that really has nothing to do with what we're talking about here, and then move on. like they start off talking about, oh, these are Donald Trump's great aunts. He never actually knew them, but they went to church.
Just clinging to anything.
Yeah. Or he at this point in his life, he started going to X church with his family, but there's no evidence that affected anything to do with his life.
The apologetics.
Oh, it's terrible. Like, it literally said, oh, these are his 2 great aunts. One died before he was born, and the other died when he was a toddler. Like, he literally never knew them. And but they were real churchgoer, and they went to some tent revival thing that was a precursor to Pentecostalism. And yeah. That what was her name? That woman that came to New York City and did all kinds of charismatic preaching and shit. I don't know. Yes, that's right.
I can't remember.
Yeah, they're like, oh, his great aunts went to her church, but he never knew them. I think we broke Morgan. She put her mic off, turned her mic off.
Yeah. Templeton, that's who it is.
But anyway, so yes, I have no fucking clue what we're doing next week, but unless something blows up, we'll be here. So we'll find something profound to talk about. I'm sure of it. But of course, we'll be here 7:30 p.m. Eastern next week. So pop in and join us. Maybe we'll have some more interesting trolls. These guys were kind of lame, but you know, one can only hope for exciting trolls. And thanks for Tris and Matt for hanging out with us there and enjoying the trolls. You know, somebody has to do it. Oh, and if you're curious at all, this weekend, yesterday actually, Scott went out and picketed a new church, and that went reasonably well. And the Brantford Atheists went out and picketed a church as well, and I think that went well as also. And now I saw that there was somebody I know out in Alberta who's trying to get together some people to go picketing out in Lethbridge. So that would be cool. So every time there's one more person out picketing a church, it's potentially less Catholics in the world. So, you know.
Morgan, plug your ears.
Pardon?
Plug your ears, Morgan. The Mormon bishop was excommunicated for trying to protect children.
I saw that.
I could have told you that was gonna happen. I have never seen a public figure who was sent for excommunication that ever got a reprieve. And it didn't matter what kind of public support that person had, they were always excommunicated, because it's basically, you cannot publicly disagree with the church doctrine, period.
Yeah, I think there's a story about it in the LA Times. That's how I saw it.
Yeah,
so that was the gentleman that Bryce had been talking about with us a few weeks ago, who he was still a believing, practicing Mormon who objected to the sexually invasive bishop interview questions and was trying to effect a positive change on the church, and they excommunicated him. So what does that tell you, folks? I feel bad for him, because obviously he still believed in the core of the church, and he wanted to make it a better institution, and they basically gave him a big old fuck you.
Yeah.
Do you guys know that the disciplinary councils that they hold like that, they call them, honestly, a court of love?
Yeah.
Yeah. We love you so much, we'll kick you out until you can be a better Mormon. Excuse me. Anyway. A little dry there. Yeah, that's that. So we'll be back next week, and let me just take a drink of water here. Hey, the week before I clicked the wrong button, so it's fine, you know. A little coughing won't hurt. So anyway, we'll see everybody here next week. Until then, we'll leave you with the human creed for mankind, and everybody have a good night. And I hit the wrong button again.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.